think we're gonna, as Semra was saying, we're gonna pick up on some of the topics that were covered in the earlier session. But I think I want to start off, Kike, with you. Obviously, the rollout of the Metaverse is inevitable, even if it's going to be, 5, 10, 15 years from now, it will come. So, given that context, why do you believe football clubs should start preparing?
Well, thank you. First of all, good morning, and thank you for the invitation. It's really a pleasure to take part in this event that you always organize and share stage with Fred again after the conversation we had at the World Football Summit. I think, technology is giving us possibilities that were not possible before, and also giving the possibility to share new experiences with fans and offer new experiences to fans. So in my opinion, football clubs should embrace the new technologies, stay ahead of the curve, and try to give the best experience to fans. And that's why they should really closely look at the new things that are developing, how they can work on the Metaverse, and it's a buzzword, as you said. It's more a vision of 5 to 10 years, but there are a lot of things that you can do now, and I think it's key to use the tools you have available at the moment, and then start preparing for what's coming. Sometimes when I talk to football clubs and partners, they immediately want to build the next big things and the Metaverse, and they want always to think very big. But I think you have to start with the basics and make the things that are possible today right, to then start thinking about what will come in the future.
Okay. By the way, guys, just maintenance things. If we have time towards the end of the session, we'll like to open up to questions. So if you guys want to think up about questions during the, what we're speaking here, hopefully we'll cover that as well. Now, Fred, I think one of the challenges here that we have is, and especially I think you see it when you talk about new technologies with football clubs and with football organizations. So, but at the end of the day, sometimes we forget that before the technology, there are certain principles that we need to respect, let's say, no? So, what are some of those core principles that we need to embrace before really tackling new technologies?
First of all, good afternoon, everybody. It's fantastic to be here again. Let me just give you a brief introduction about the word Metaverse, because it's not new at all. The truth is, back to 2004, realities like Second Life, or even in the gaming industry, games like World of Warcraft, this is just the evolution of what we have lived 15, 20 years ago already. But the market fit and the time to market back to 2005, community and the digital transformation was not ready to scale that up. So if you go back once again to 2005, the experience of Second Life, of opening restaurants, opening stadiums online, and connect the people online with their avatars to interact with each other, that was already done back to 2005. And it's funny to say, even in Portugal, our Prime Minister, back to 2005, he was one of the first to have an official representation of the Secretary of Innovation in Portugal in Second Life. So today, what is the difference before and between what we had in the past? We have 5G, we have a much better internet connection to facilitate the experience, and we have much more people deep inside technology compared to 2005. Mm-hmm. So I would say that today we have a much better condition to scale up the product compared to what was the beta stages of this experience online. In terms of what we can do and what we cannot do, or how we can do it, I think the challenge is what the clubs and what the people who is in charge of the clubs is willing to move forward, how conservative or how innovators they want to be. And that will be just a challenge. Some clubs will do it first because they have that capacity to be first movers, and they appreciate that, and their marketing and communication appreciates that. and some other clubs will be the last ones because the way that they manage their brands, it will be much more difficult to have all the infrastructure prepared for that. But if you take the example of what Real Madrid published 2 weeks ago with their experience in Santiago Bernabéu, that is a fantastic first mover approach, which is opening part of the door to what will be the metaverse experience in the future.
Okay. And Kike, well, we're not going to discover here the amount of technologies that Meta has launched and adoption from users. So is there a way, or does it make sense to look for or to accelerate, as Fred was mentioning before, the scale of that the acceptance of that technology by users? How can we do that?
I think one mistake that a lot of people make when they think about the metaverse is that they tend to think only on VR, and the metaverse is not VR. It's a virtual space where we're going to share experiences, but you're going to access through different devices. Fred, you mentioned gaming and World of Warcraft, but think about also Fortnite. It's a game that you can play on your PlayStation, you can play on your iPad, you can play on your phone, you can play on your computer. And I think that's the key, like the interoperability between devices. So the technology is already, it's already there. Yes, VR is still not a mass product, and not everyone has a VR headset at home, and I highly recommend you to really go and buy one. This is my moment for free marketing for the Oculus, but it's really like the experience of buying the headset, getting it at home, open it, fight with the configuration, understand how the App Store work and how you download an app and how it's experienced. I think it's an investment for anyone who is in this industry to see, to understand where we're going, where we're heading. If you think about social media in general, or platforms like Facebook and Instagram, you're already giving the fans a virtual experience and a virtual share experience. So it's what I said before, like you need to really think about the tools you have now, the technology that it's available today, and look for ways to engage with your audience and give and create value for your fans, to make sure that you're ready, that when that technology, that VR technology become mass, you can actually jump into that technology and create those new experiences. Also, think about around all the possibilities that you have around augmented reality, which is also a first step that you can put into the metaverse, which at the end of the day it's a word, but it's as Fred said, it's something that already exists. For me, the metaverse is the intersection between real and digital life, and a simple AR filter that you can use on Instagram and share on your stories, and a filter that will help fans create content around your brand. It's a way of interacting and offering this digital experience that will create value for the brand. So I think football clubs should be looking for these first baby steps into the metaverse before thinking about the big picture, when all the technologies will allow us. What will change for the metaverse in general is the sense of immersion. So if you have your VR headset, for sure your experience will be much more immersed into the content than if you're accessing from your phone. But you don't have to think about VR only, because virtual spaces can be accessible from any device, and everyone has a mobile phone or a computer at home.
So shifting gears a little bit now, one of the claims that you see around Web3 is always around fan empowerment, interaction, and that ultimately leads to revenue. So at the end of the day, that's the goal of marketing, to drive revenue. But for years now, what I've seen is that the fantasy games are actually a great source of fan engagement and a great source of revenue, because the user, the fan, is really invested into not only the fantasy game itself, but actually the sport itself. So for example, I've been a fantasy game player, and I'm really looking at or watching games that I would rarely watch just because I have that player on my team, no? So that would be an example. Now, Fred, what I want to understand from you is, how does this go to the next level with the metaverse?
Well, fantasy is pure Web 2, right? And when you build a Web 3 product, what everybody must have in mind is there is a huge bottleneck that we cannot change, which is the user must install a MetaMask wallet, or a MetaMask or a Trust or whatever non-custodial wallet. Without that, there is no Web 3 road. So the installation of a MetaMask or a Trust wallet or any other non-custodial into a blockchain, you need to use as many tools as possible to use this conversion and to improve this conversion funnel as best as possible. And fantasy is probably one of the best tools that you can use to increase your database and your customer base and improve it, because it's super qualified. It's a sport fund. We know which is the favorite club of the user. We know what are the favorite players. We know where the user is coming from, and we know that he has a huge knowledge around football, because fantasy, that is one of a mandatory condition for you to win, is to have knowledge, right? So, but that user is not commercially activated already. It's just pure fun engagement. So the challenge is, once you have 1 million users into your database playing a fantasy league, how do you convert them to a Web3 environment where he is going to spend more and more and more money with you? You know? So in terms of business scope, for me, fantasy is just to gather the users and then improve every week, and I'm super crazy about analytics, improve the conversion rate from a fantasy player to a Web3 customer who spends money online buying that stuff. And also, to do not lose the subject, it's important to share with you today what will be the transformation in the metaverse in terms of product. What will we do in the future with the metaverse into sports? There are 3 major things that we are doing, but probably many more people will do it in the future. The first one is a transformation of the merchandising. Merchandising today is completely struggled. You know, the jerseys, the caps, the shoes, whatever. We can sell it in a physical store for the people that is there physically. But if you want to scale up your sales for Indonesia, for Malaysia, for Australia, for Africa, for South America, there is a huge supply chain problem and a huge logistical problem to put the merchandising there to be sold. And you need physical operation, everything. So what the digital enables you is to sell official merchandising, but just pure digital. So I don't need to have a physical operation there. I don't need to have, you know, business developers, stores, local stores, whatever. I can sell it directly to the user inside the metaverse. The second thing that makes the whole difference is the experience with the players themselves. Because today, if the chief marketing officer of the club says, I want to do an activation with a dinner, with the man of the match, with a specific group of 50 people, nobody will approve that. The agent refuses, the player does not want, and it's too risky, you know? But if you ask the player to do it into the metaverse through his avatar, he does not have the physical risk to be with people that he does not know, but you can scale up the experience beyond your creativity as long as the player is committed with his avatar, okay, inside the metaverse. And the third one, which is a bit more challenging, but it's one of the things that I focus myself every day, is to shut down forever the TV boxes. Because the experience of how you consume today the content, today is unilateral, you know. So for me to watch a game with a group of friends, it's just a stadium. But people in the other side of the globe, they have the right to have a completely social experience without the need to come to the stadium to watch the game alive. And that's one of the things that into the metaverse we will be able to explore. So OTTs will be in a completely next level when we integrate them into the virtual reality.
So this question actually goes back to something that was discussed in the previous panel and something that you were mentioning, Fred, now. Kike, from your side, from what you're seeing, and obviously now with the launch of the new action with, for example, the NBA has launched a new partnership with Meta as well. So is this the ultimate solution to be able to monetize from the fans that are outside, let's say, our local communities? Are there any other use cases, other ones that Fred were mentioning?
I mean, absolutely. Like it's going to be an opportunity to monetize in new ways as you can offer new experiences to fans. The question is like which platform will be the best one, and also depending on the experiences you're selling, what is the potential audience of people? Because if you are creating an experience for VR, to give an example, at the moment VR is not a mass media product, but that doesn't mean that you cannot offer different experiences, share experiences digitally that can be monetized. Product like watching a live game on Facebook, for example, when you are when you have the chance to comment, to create a chat with your friends and kind of watch the game together, it's a way to experience that social that social interaction that Fred was mentioning before. In the future, we will have a more immersed, and that experience will be even more real. So the sense of present, to be there without being there, it's key. At the moment, the monetization, I'll say it's complicated because we are at the beginning. Like, I think the philosophy of the club, and sometimes in general football, thinks very short term. And when thinking about the metaverse, it's and the business you can build in the metaverse, it's a more long-term investment. I don't know if you agree, Fred, but it's hard to, like, if you want to jump in the metaverse to make a lot of money at the moment, I think it's challenging. In Oculus, I think the only ones, or in VR in general, the only ones that are making real money are the developers that are creating very good games that have a lot of people playing, but the audience is still limited, so you have to be creative and try to think a little bit more long-term to find the right monetization model.
Mm-hmm. Let me just compliment. I think this is just the right time for all the commercial teams discuss metaverse with the legal teams, because when the money opportunity appears, the only people that will block almost every single marketing action will be the legal departments. And I have that experience every day, dealing with clubs and dealing even with my personal, the lawyers of Real Fevr. And I think the winners will be the ones who will have better lawyers prepared, understanding the scope, and creating the legal framework to activate this new role for sports. Because in the end, idea can be fantastic, monetization can be fantastic, product fit can be fantastic, time to market can be fantastic, but there will be one lawyer that will say, I don't agree in the compliance to do this in the club.
I think we will see the classical clause of, okay, we'll give you the rights for the platform we have, like ITV, mobile, etc., and any potential platform that will come in the future. I think we'll have that clause disappear in some of the future contracts, because it's true, like, technology is moving so fast that it's hard to predict what the revenue opportunity will be in the future, and probably you're limiting yourself with current contracts that
lawyers are our best friends for sure. Yeah. I have no doubt about it.
So on that sense, Fred, you just signed a nice deal with I believe it's Torino, and when you're working with them now, is that something that, I don't know if you found yourself when you started those discussions that they brought in the legal team? Mm-hmm. Did you recommend them to bring them? And also, I think I want to take the opportunity also to, if we can understand, help the audience understand, what's the connection between the metaverse and NFTs? as well, okay? Because I think sometimes we see these buzzwords flying around and we're not really sure how they're connected. So if you can also give insight into that as well.
Okay, so the NFTs, let me try to explain this as best and as simple as possible. When I was playing World of Warcraft, it took me like, there was a super special sword called Thunder Fury, and it will take you like 12 hours a day during 6 months, unstoppable, for you to achieve and own that specific sword. 6 months, 12 hours a day, and you could not give up. Otherwise, you would not be able to get it. But you would put your effort, you would put your time playing the game. In the end, you would have something absolutely unique. No one in the world will have a sword like yours, but it would worth absolutely nothing. So what the NFTs activate are the in-game assets or in-reality assets that can be traded into secondary market, and they will have a specific value. I'll give you another example. When a football match ends, the player goes to the audience and sends the jersey, like for free, right? But if the person goes to a secondary marketplace like eBay, we will have a reference about the value of that specific asset. But this is something that, you know, into a physical asset, we cannot scale it up to the whole planet because it's limited to a specific group of buyers in eBay or any other secondary physical marketplace. But when we transform this into NFTs, we can trade them thousands of times a day, distributed globally for every single person in the world, as long as the person has internet connection and it has a MetaMask in the end. So that's basically the idea of the NFTs. Regarding to the type of NFTs that we can activate, in the case of one of our verticals in the company is we just recycle history and we transform an athlete into an artist, because we consider that when the athlete scores a beautiful goal, besides an execution or a technical execution, it's a piece of art in motion, let's say. So the NFT itself has that IP connected to certify the origin of the goal. The point is, when you start to deal with media rights, it's for us 1.5 years ago when we started, it was a huge challenge because each country, they have different media rights and they have different media owners and different players in the middle of that. In the case of Italy, there is a very, very nice thing compared to Portugal or compared, I think, to Spain, which is 8 to 10 days after the live match, the video rights of that match goes back to the club, and the club owns that piece of content, which facilitates a lot a decentralization approach of each club, so they can decide with who do they want to deal, instead of having one centralized media company that you have to deal with if you want to have access to specific content. So in the end, into the metaverse, and to close the sentence, in the end, in the metaverse, what we will see is every single piece of content of an asset inside the metaverse is tradable, and it's super liquid. So because someone wants to buy it and someone wants to sell it, the market and the whole economy is being transformed every single day, which in fact, in terms of fund domination into the assets, it's a completely different perspective compared to Web 2. So as a fund into the Web3 world, I don't want to buy something and hold it just because I love the club. I want to buy something that has value for me, but if I want to sell it for more money, someone will recognize that it has more money and I want to trade that content. But the point is, some of you can not agree with this perspective, and I understand that, but this speculative market that happens today, which is a fact, in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, there are 2 new categories of people that we need to build up into this space, which are the collectors, digital collectors, and the most important ones, at least in my perspective, which is the digital braggers. And the digital braggers, today integrated with Instagram, and it's already announced last week, 2 weeks ago, and with Twitter. The point is, if you buy, out of the scope of sports, but if you buy a CryptoPunk for $1 million, which is the cost of a CryptoPunk, you can certify your avatar in your Twitter account that you own one CryptoPunk that worth $1 million, and you are going to show off to your friends into that social network that you own something that worth $1 million. So this new generation of digital braggers, they really don't care about Louis Vuitton bag, about Ferraris or Lambos or whatever. They care about digital assets. And that's why we are replacing and transforming these physical braggers to digital braggers into this brand new world.
Okay. Just taking into account the time, I want to finish off with a question that I'll open up to you, Kike. Feel free, Fred, to jump in. But Kike, from your side, one of the things that I notice is you're in the middle of a triangle that, let's draw it out. It's football, it's technology, and it's fan behavior. So within that framework, what recommendations do you have for football clubs to improve or to improve their marketing strategies going forward?
I think the first thing football clubs in general need to do is think about the fan and think about the experience. As you said, Meta as a company has the privilege to sit on top of a lot of users, and we develop product as we see people interacting with our product, and we try to basically give the user the best experience. Just to give you a very simple example, but it illustrates very well what I'm saying. If you think about the Facebook Marketplace, like that was a product that was built after an engineer saw that there were a lot of people using Facebook to sell the things they were not using to their fans and to their friends. So we basically create a product to make that experience better. And I think football clubs have to learn from this approach and don't think that everything is invented, because fans are changing a lot, and especially how you engage with young audiences. Think about how video has evolved, how difficult it is to get the attention from a young fan for 90 minutes in front of the TV, but he will be maybe consuming short form video content in vertical format. If you think about it now, everything in football is created, like the way the content is created is for the TV screen, but the real screen where we spend most of our time is the mobile screen, which is vertical. So start thinking about how you innovate with the content you're creating, how you innovate the engagement, and how you think about technologies on Web3. And as you see, the fans getting into those spaces, it's key for a football club to succeed in the future. Fred, you were mentioning MetaMask and all these technologies that can be so very complicated at the beginning. So how football clubs educate fans to use MetaMask to make sure that when they launch a collectible of NFTs to try to monetize or create that digital assets, they can actually buy them, because if you don't have the MetaMask, how are you going to buy them? So I think also educating fans into the new experiences and Web3 and what they can achieve with these technologies, it's key.
Great. Fair enough.
Skin in the game and knowledge, because the winners will be those who have the knowledge to understand the technology. If you don't have skin in the game, and if you don't try out and expose yourself to understand the technology, don't expect someone to do it for you, because the only thing that will make you a winner in this new market will be really the level of knowledge that you have when you have to decide something. Otherwise, you are just going to decide based in ignorance, which is dramatically dangerous when we are in charge of any marketing or communication or product department. So in the end, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, most of the communication of the clubs for them to have a Twitter or an Instagram or a Facebook account would be like, okay, but do we really need to have this? And today, I think no one in this room would question if they need or not need an Instagram and a Facebook account, right? To operate and to communicate with their funds. They have to do it, and they have to assemble teams to create the content, to plan the content, to check how are they going to communicate. In 10 years, and that's why they are also moving to Meta, is because, okay, we already have this business done, but what are we going to do in the future? And clearly, like 10 years ago, we had to set up those Web2 accounts to communicate with our funds. It's exactly what is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. You will have to have it, otherwise you are just going to get lost.
Yeah, I think the big question is what the next computing platform will be. Because if you think, you know, in the 90s we had personal computers at home. In 2000 was more, it's been in the last 15 years all about mobile internet. And if you think about the history of computing platform, every 10 to 15 years there's a change. So what the new computing platform will be, that's the big question.
That's the question. Anyway, Fred, Kike, I want to thank you because I've had a wonderful time. I could ask many more hours of questions, but I think we're going to open up to the audience if we have a little bit of time. I think we have like 10 minutes or so, more or less. So if we can get a microphone, that would be great. I saw your hand up first, over there. Yep. And then you go over there.
Hello. If you haven't forgotten me, Ariana at Next Sports. My question has to do with, you guys are talking about marketing and bringing people to the metaverse. But in an earlier conversation, we heard that youth are not really watching football anymore, and they're obviously not playing. So you guys are at a juxtaposition of getting kids off the metaverse and trying to get them with football, girls and boys. How are you guys dealing with that, and how can Meta make a difference? Because football teams, they need footballers to play.
I don't think young fans are not watching football. I think they're consuming football in a different way. Maybe they're not watching a full 90-minute game because it's harder to take the attention of, but they're looking for new experiences. And if you look at one example, Real Madrid, when they won the title, La Liga title, they shared all the short videos and engaged with the audience while they were celebrating. And if you look at the metrics, the majority of the people that were consuming that content are young audiences. So I think the key is how you make sure that you keep being relevant for fans, adapting to the new ways of consumption. And short-form vertical video, it's a very good example of what's coming and where young audiences are, what young audiences are looking for. So I don't think the challenge is to bring young audiences to football. I think it's the football industry needs to pay more attention to the new trends and create content to keep being relevant.
The question is fantastic, and the answer, we don't have time to explore the whole answer. But if your question is a fantastic question, I explain you why. Neither me or Kike or probably any other person in this room takes the responsibility for that answer. But digital transformation is dramatically dangerous for young audience and for children. But the point is, you should ask Samsung, Apple, Huawei, all the mobile and the all hardware companies, and also the parents, why do they give mobile phones for children, right? So as long as you transform them digitally, they will not be willing to go out into nature and have physical activities that in the end will put them playing football or tennis or any other sport activity. So digital transformation is fantastic, but has this evilness side, of putting people out of the physical and real pragmatic activities that goes exactly to your question. But as long as parents give mobile phones for children with 3, 4, 5 years old, it's not my responsibility. Yeah. It cannot be.
There was a question here up front.
Hello. So, in my experience on the last 25 years on the video game industry, I've seen a lot of cycles, a lot of change in business models, going from physical distribution to digital distribution to free-to-play. Now it's coming with the digital assets. That means ownership. It's not ownership against all the trends in the history, moving from ownership to renting and just consuming the experience, and you don't care on this. I mean, what I see is that all the market has moving from the biggest collector that you have, that is a physical collector, and how can this get even to the same value than a physical collector? How can compete? And if it's not against this trend of you don't buy a movie, you rent a movie, you stream a movie, and now even for the video games you do subscription, because people is getting tired of the people from free to play, for micropayments, and just imagine that the next big business model that is good to think on speculation. This is the job for a lot of people here, building business models. Even if it's looking good, it's realistic to think that can be the next big thing on business model. It's coherent with the market reality trends in the last 20 years.
I don't know if I understood correctly the question, but in my perspective, first thing, in the last 25 years, you didn't have a technology that could enable the ownership. That's what blockchain does. So in the past, there was no technology at all into a decentralized perspective that would give you the ownership of a digital asset, not the physical ones. Physical ones is crystal clear, but digital assets could not be transformed because there was no technology to enable it, right? So only from 2014, with the Ethereum platform, you can create dApps, decentralized applications, and with that, and with the smart contracts, then you can move forward with the digital ownership of a digital asset. So before, there was no technology to enable that.
Okay, you add a third party,
which technology?
Smart contracts, but the digital stores are from the 2000s.
Digital stores centralized, not decentralized.
Yeah, decentralized.
So a super administrator could erase your data and steal your assets. Today, what happens with blockchain is that no one controls the asset, and there is no centralized administrator that can erase your data just because he wants. And that's the value of all of this, you know, is to not have someone who can control everybody's assets. That's the magical thing on this, in my perspective.
Okay, I think we have time for one more short question over here on the white shirt.
Hi, Marco Guaschi from Piuma. My work is related to the e-commerce and customer experience and service after the purchase. How do you see the transition from the e-commerce to the meta-commerce? And I see two opportunities, of course, the digital assets, but also the shopping experience of real products through this metaverse. How do you see this evolution going, and where from now you think that clubs could offer, for example, tickets to train with the team through these new resources, or even season tickets? So yeah, that would be.
I think it's very interesting how commerce will evolve in general, and the real value for me around NFTs especially and collectible is when the two worlds will talk to each other. So imagine that if you hold a certain number of digital assets, you'll be able to be eligible to buy one special shirt or one special experience. I think that's where we will see the value when NFTs give you access to exclusive experience. I think that will be a very interesting ticking point on the evolution of e-commerce versus commerce and fan engagement in general, because it's not just owning the assets, and as I said before, for me the metaverse is the intersection between physical and digital. So when we see these two worlds talking to each other more, it's where we're going to unlock, I think, the highest opportunity, the biggest opportunity.
An e-commerce platform is a static one without an immersive experience to enter into a store, right? You just list the assets, the physical assets that you have, you know, like Amazon. I go there, I choose what I want, I put my address, 5 days after, I get the goods, right? Into the metaverse, your e-commerce platform can be represented into a building, a physical store inside the metaverse, and you will create immersive experience for people to interact with your store. It can be a restaurant, it can be a supermarket, it can be a kiosk that outside the stadium is always there, and in the same way that when you come to a physical stadium and you drink a Heineken beer, you can drink a Heineken inside the metaverse anyways. If you feel like the fresh beer into your mouth, no, you don't feel it, but your mind will accept that as a new reality anyways. For those who do not have that experience, it's fine, I respect, but personally I've celebrated 4 years my birthdays online, and you know, it's possible. It's different, but it's possible. It's crazy. Yes, maybe it's crazy, but anyways, as long as there is demanding, should be offering, you know, to create business and economy around that. And just to finish, Kike gave one of the best examples that Facebook did a few years ago with the secondary market activation, right? The Facebook marketplace. And in the future, exactly the same marketplace for physical goods and assets is there. Also, there will be thousands of new marketplaces just for digital assets. And your e-commerce platform will be represented inside the metaverse. At the beginning, not that many sales, but in 10 years, 15 years, maybe the new Amazon.
All right.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you. Thank you very much, Kike, Fred. This was amazing.
Thank you.
Hope the audience had a good time, learned a lot. I certainly did. And just we're going to give wave to the next speakers. So thank you.